Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of MixHax. And what we do here is try and give you a couple of hacks to make mixing a little bit easier, hopefully save you some effort and time. So what we're going to be talking about now is steep rotation. And what we mean by that is making sure that you're ahead of the curve. You've got enough stuff steeping. This was a big thing for me when I started mixing. I actually mixed for very long before I really got so obsessed with DIY and really got into all the flavors that is available now. But how it started for me is just looking at a cheaper alternative way of vaping, and that's of course how I discovered DIY. What I had to do first, though, and this was a bit of a daunting exercise, is find recipes, that worked for me. And this is a bit of a hit and miss thing, but the best thing to do is to mix up small little mixes or small little samples of recipes, 15 mil to 20 mil samples of a recipe, until you find something that you really like. Once you've found your first recipe that you like and that you can see that you'll mix up maybe more than 50 or 100 mil, you need to start thinking about how much juice do I consume, in a day, and once you've established that, if you consume anywhere from 20 to 25 mils a day, which is on the higher end, of course, if you direct lunging with dual coils, then you need to start calculating how much you are going to need over a month period of time. Then you also need to think about, now if you go into the next month, you need to have everything mixed up and steeped. So there's a bit of calculation that you need to do there. So what I normally did is I got to a point where I had 4 or 5 recipes that I really liked. I had a couple of, I had a strawberry milk, I had a strawberry cream, and I had some ice creams as well that I used to like. I had Simply Cannoli was always part of it, and things like God milk and that kind of thing. And what I used to do is I'd always used to make sure that I mix up enough, and always calculate on an average of 20 mils of juice, how much juice will I consume in a month, and how long would it take for me to complete the juice that I've already steeped, and then factor in how long before that, do I need to start mixing so that I can be ahead of the curve. By doing that, I'm literally just kind of rotating my mix the whole time. You probably want to play it a little bit safer and mix up some extra, so that when you increase your consumption, so for instance you have a barbecue or a braai or whatever the case is, you're probably going to be vaping more, and you might end up short at the end of the month and nothing is steeped. And you don't want to be in a position like that, because sure as hell, if you are, you're going to be grabbing to a cigarette that's the closest to you. So it's a little bit more serious than what people think. You need to try and avoid the thing of being without juice. Pete, what do you do?
In the beginning, the first mission was to figure out how much I consume and how long the juice that I was mixing at the time would need a steep for. 2 things in the beginning: I was very lazy to mix once every week, and my one solution for that was that I found recipes that is shake and vape and does not require steep. I think that's mainly what got me into fruits, because most of the fruits shake and vape to a 1 to 3 day steep, and then you are ready. But later I got caught a few times where I had no juice and I had nothing mixed, and then, as Murphy's Law would have it, then I also am missing a concentrate of the stuff I would normally mix for shake and vape. So I later just started mixing out of habit once every 2 weeks. Literally every second weekend I would have a few mixes going, and now when I mix, I know I've got a few permanent rotation things that I will always mix, whether I think I want it or not. And there's at this stage, it's basically I think three: my own jelly bomb, the Hawaiian Pog, and Doug's Awesome Sauce. There might be one or two others, but I normally mix a lot of that because it steeps. It doesn't always require steep, and even if it does require steep, I can still shake and vape it. These are good recipes to shake and vape. But what I also do, just to make sure I don't run out, is depending on which juice it is. If it's something new and experimental, I normally mix it and that goes into a steep, and that's fine. But for the stuff that I vape a lot of, and I know some of it might need a steep, I would mix two batches, one to shake and vape and one to steep. Either I would mix double batches or just mix double the amount of what I needed and go with it that way. So my solution for that is basically shake and vape recipes and mixing double batches. Also getting into the habit of mixing every second week or so. It could be every third week, depending on how much you mix in one go. Just whether I have juice or not, I'm always mixing every second week. That just ensures there's a permanent chain of perpetual juice flowing from my juice creations. That's mine. Richard?
Okay, for me, I don't have anything to vape phenomenon comes down to one of three causes. The first is the experienced mixer who has everything. He's got enough bottles, enough nick, enough PG, VG flavors, but they don't mix because they forgot to, or they had something important to do, and they allow their juice stocks to run low, and then suddenly they don't have anything to mix. That for me is inexcusable, and it's very easy to counter that. What I would recommend, calculate how much juice you vape per week. If you vape 100 mils of juice per week, set aside an hour on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning or whenever you got the time to do it, and mix whatever you vape per week plus 10% on top of that, or 20% on top of that. So if you vape 100 mils a week, sit down a Sunday morning and mix 120 mils. Do that for 4 weeks in a row, you suddenly now have a stockpile of 80 mils of juice extra above what you would normally vape. So you slowly build up a surplus, and what that means is that you get into a position where if you can't make a Sunday because there's a family event on or something like that, you still are okay. The second cause of the I don't have juice phenomenon is mixers who are probably still quite new. They don't have that many concentrates, and what they would do is they would like to mix, but they don't have the concentrates for it because they've got the wrong concentrates. Now this happens when you start buying stuff like ginger or cardamom or Yakima hops or whatever. You're buying accent spice flavors instead of your staples, your vanilla custards, your sugar cookies, your strawberry ribes, etc. So what happens is people have got the concentrates, but they can't mix anything for it. I mean, what are you going to mix with cardamom and Yakima hops? So delay buying those flavors. Get your staples first. Get the things that form the bulk of your mixing. Leave cardamom and spices and little 0.25% addition flavors for much later in your mixing journey. That way you're getting bang for buck, and your flavors that you buy, you will get much better value from them and much better use from them if you're buying these staple core concentrates. The third cause of the I don't have juice, and this needs to be addressed because it is a factor, is people who start DIYing because they don't earn enough to buy commercial juice, and they've just got into DIY, and they can't even afford to buy 10 or 15 flavors in a cart. They can literally afford 1 or 2 flavors a month and a little bit of nick, a little bit of PG and VG. These are guys who are, vaping is a major cost for them. Now, for them, I would say you need to be the most careful about your flavor purchases. Find yourself single flavors that you can vape, things like Cap Sweet Guava, TFA Red Licorice, FA Soho, TFA RY4 double, Cap Vanilla Custard. Flavors that are fine on their own. You don't really need to mix them with anything. Alternatively, look up 2 and 3 flavor recipes that use cheap concentrates. Now, I'll use one example. Skittles is Cereally Easy Loops. That's 4% TFA Bavarian cream, 4% Flavor West fruit circles. Around here in South Africa, you can buy TFA and FW flavors for 15 Rand for a 10 ml if you look around and you do your price comparisons with the various vendors. So you can buy a 10 ml bottle of Bavarian cream and a 10 ml bottle of FW Fruit Loops for 30 Rand. That will make you 250 mls of juice. If you're vaping 20 mils of juice a day, that's 12 days of juice for 30 Rand for the flavors. Obviously, the PGVG nick comes on top of that. But the point is that if you are careful, if you choose your flavors carefully, find recipes that work for you, you can vape very, very cheaply. So when it comes down to those final, that final week of the month before payday where you've run out of your juice and you're now desperate to find something, that's when you pull out your ace in the hole and you take those ultra cheap TFA and FW flavors that you bought at the start of the month, and that's where you mix them up. These very economical recipes, you can vape a heck of a lot cheaper than you used to smoke if you just manage your budget carefully. So those are the 3 scenarios where people tend to run out of juice, and those are the 3 solutions that I would advocate for that. If you follow that advice, you shouldn't ever at any point get to a stage where you're saying, what do I do now? I have nothing to do.
Guys, I'm also going to leave a link in the description permanently from now on, which is the DIY primer doc that Richard created. It's really easy to read. Also talks about the staples. When we say staples, what do we mean? He split it up there in your tier 1 staples. That's what you need to look at, especially if you're buying your concentrates and your first concentrates. And you're looking at concentrates that's going to take you a long way, potentially things that are used in, not potentially, are used in many recipes. So go and have a look at this document. I've got an e-cigs a link in there, but you can download the PDF from that thread in the forum. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Do you want to add anything else? Cool.
Nope.
Guys, I think what we want to know from you is, what methods do you use to make sure that you stay ahead of the curve? Is there anything that we missed out that we potentially haven't even spoken about over here? Is there anything a little bit more scientific that we need to look at? And I think it's important if you leave those down in the comments so that people can read it when they watch this video. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.